can you tell me about structure of Occupy Wall Street?
Well, the structure of Occupy Wall Street has always been based on a structure that pretty much, I think, David Draper and some of the other people that were here in the beginning created. It's more of an anarcho type of structure foundation for Occupy Wall Street. And it has had varying degrees of success and failure. And the structure is based on what we call, we're trying to create non-horizontal structures that are fair and equitable to everyone, that allows everyone to participate and have a voice. That's been pretty much what the structures have been about, and we call it leaderless. We call ourselves a leaderless movement as well. The structure also consists in Occupy Wall Street of different working groups that work on different issues, as well as different affinity groups. There's also groups that are independent within Occupy Wall Street. Each group, for the most part, they stick to whatever their mission is, but for the most part, the structure, is kind of similar. Our group, OccuEvolve, is a little different in how we look at structure and how we look at the culture of OWS.
What are some of the problems that you encountered with the horizontal decision making and this kind of structure?
First and foremost, the biggest problem is accountability, transparency, decision making, getting things done. There's certain levels of expertise that everyone has and everyone can bring to the plate. But when you have it just so open, so inclusive, sometimes decisions take forever to get made, things getting done, they don't get done. And if you don't have a structure in place that's based on experience, that's based on effectiveness, that's based on accountability, that's based on both personal and collective responsibility, it's going to be hard to get things done. So some of our problems has been that everyone feels that, we shouldn't have leaders. But our position is everyone is a leader, and everyone should take a leadership role inside of this movement. So the problem has been, the big problem for a lot of us has been like the lack of structure. Leaderlessness, sounds like chaos. And, I think that's the anarchist's worst myth or nightmare, that, chaos and anarchy are the same. And I certainly don't think that they created the structure to be chaotic like that, but in essence it has been. We have people in this movement that have varying degrees of experience in terms of activism as well, and certain people know how to do certain things. But if you don't have some sort of, and I don't want to call it hierarchy, but if you don't have some sort of system in place where people can do certain things based on their experience, based on their commitment, based on their level of accountability and responsibility, not a lot of things are going to get done. Everybody can't do everything. So there should be a system in place where people with experience can train other people, and we can kind of rotate what we call leadership. Hierarchy isn't necessarily a bad thing if it's a hierarchy that's based upon, everyone, talents and commitments are taken into consideration. It's not about, I'm over you or she's over me. It's not about that. It's about people that are willing to commit, people that have expertise, and people that have passion and commitment to what they're trying to do. Historically, there have always been hierarchies in place, even in the civil rights movement, even anti-Vietnam War movement, Black Power movement. But a lot of times these hierarchies were based upon experience. So we're not talking about hierarchical structures like we see in the 1%. We're talking about structures that can create accountability, that have transparency, that have people getting things done. That was one of our biggest issues, like who's going to do what and who's going to commit to what. And a lot of times, our movement is not leaderless. It's not leaderful. It's certain people doing certain things. So if we can get to a level where it is leaderful, full of leaders, I think we can connect with the 99%. I think that we can create amazing actions. But most importantly, I think that we can create change. And what's really important within the culture of OWS is for us to create change. You have to have a structure in place. We have to have accountability and responsibility, and work shouldn't fall to one person. We're a community, more than just some assimilation of autonomous beings. We're a community. Community is more important than autonomy. In fact, autonomy cannot be fully developed without a community in place. So if you don't have that, people are going to do whatever they want and call it, pushing the movement forward. But people can also, under the banner of autonomy, push their own agenda. Like an autonomous action, somebody thought an autonomous action was taking a crap on an ATM machine. How is that? How is that helpful to the movement? So we really got to define what autonomy is and how it exists within this culture. And we got to make sure that it doesn't turn into some sort of ego thing or, thing where autonomy, which means I can do whatever I want against a community agreement, against a value, against a decision that the movement has made. So very, very important that we learn how to marry this concept of autonomy with an overarching concept of community, love, family, who's going to do what.
So, how have you been overcoming those structural problems and decision-making problems within OccuEvolve on a practical level?
On a practical level, we decided it took us about 2 or 3 months for us to create a structure within OccuEvolve, for us to create values, for us to create ethics and agreements. So we decided to go with values-based consensus, which is a system of decision-making based upon agreed-upon values. It makes decision-making much easier. It makes who's going to do what much easier. It makes getting things done much easier. Values-based consensus is very, very important because we create the values that we consent upon when we actually do proposals and we actually plan actions. The values have already been created. The community agreement, we agreed upon that we needed to have a community agreement within OccuEvolve. And we also needed to have ethics. We also needed to have some sort of structure and frame and committees in place. We have committees in place. We also have 5 different issues that we're dealing with right now that makes things much easier. Human rights, the environment, working with community-based assemblies. We also deal with getting money out of politics, which is what we're here for today, ending corporate personhood. All of these issues are just very, very important. Labor as well. So, because we have agreed upon values, it makes things much easier. So if I make a proposal that we support the action of ending corporate personhood, like today, well, under our values, under our mission, one of our goals is to get money out of politics. So the decision to come support and show solidarity for this action and to do outreach is already within the guidelines of things that we've already approved, the things that we already value. Getting money out of politics is one of the top ones. So it makes things much easier rather than having an endless stack, debating, fighting, about whether we support this action or support that action. What we do, we took time to talk about our values. And like I said, it took us about 2 or 3 months because we didn't want to go the way of the rest of Occupy Wall Street, where there's blocks, where people can come in and disrupt meetings, where people can just go on too long and dominate. So it makes things much easier. Some people call me a leader, but I consider myself a bottom liner. So every part of OccuEvolve, I work in and I make sure things get done. And when we actually conduct our meeting, I actually facilitate the first part of it for us basically to get through what the proposal process as well as the report backs, introductions. But then we have an open forum. So whatever we're talking about, whatever is the assembly, and we have assemblies every Friday, 6:30 here at 60 Wall. Whatever the topic of the assembly is, at the open forum, we begin to talk about that process. So it makes things much easier, and we also and what also makes things easier, once we consent upon proposals and actions, we focus on developing those actions. So it also makes things much easier. We have actions planned now all the way through February the 18th. So inside of the assembly, we can talk about strategies on how we can go about making this action effective, or we can talk within our committees, within the different committees that handle actions, from our event planning committee to our outreach committee to our action committee. So all of these things we have laid out. It's been arduous, it's been very hard, it's been very time consuming, but it's been worth it. And we believe in coordination as well as advanced planning. So we work with every assembly in the city, as well as several working groups within Occupy Wall Street, to be a center so different groups can come together and talk. And so we don't end up with 5 people at one action and 200 people at another, or 50 people here, 75 people there. What we're trying to do is create a community. We're trying to create a cohesive movement of not just Occupy Wall Street, of all the occupiers in the city and other 99% groups. We have about 22 values. Our values are based on African and indigenous principles. Okay, we have about 22 values right now, and I won't go over all of them, but our values are basic respect, trust, cooperative work and responsibility, faith, cooperation. Those are kind of the central values that we have. Knowledge is a value as well, and the values really help to guide our decision making and help us to have positive experiences at our assemblies and when we do actions and things of that nature. A lot of it's based on, our values are based on cooperation and respect.
And so on the practical level, so you got these values now, and then what? How do you come to a decision then?
Yeah, we come to a decision. There's a proposal process, which is part of values-based consensus, where whatever proposal that we present, it has to be based on one of those values or our mission statement or our community agreement. So if we have a proposal about stop and frisk, underneath our community agreement, we're talking about that we would like, that we respect all people in New York City, and we want to improve the quality of life of all people in New York City, and this is a space for us to do that. So if I present a proposal on stop and frisk, I point out how stop and frisk is a violation of the quality of life of a large swath of our city. So that makes it very, very simple.
Other sections of Occupy Wall Street, have they been adopting this value-based system of decision-making?
At this time, the Visions and Goals Group has adopted that, and we've been in talks with different assemblies around the city who are considering adopting values-based consensus to make decisions.
Occupy Sandy has adopted a different kind of structure. Do you know anything about that?
I'm not sure what their structure is, but from the things that I've heard, it's pretty much the same autonomous, open-ended structure that was not effective in Occupy Wall Street. However, Occupy Sandy has been very effective because they're out there with the community, they're out there doing outreach and recovering. So very, very important, the work that they're doing. The only issue that we have with them right now is where's the resistance piece. We have rebuild, recover, but resistance against the 1%'s plans of redeveloping, quote-unquote, redeveloping damaged areas by Hurricane Sandy. So we're saying, or asking, what's going on with the resistance? We don't see a lot of that. We see a lot more people are trying to start NGOs or relief agencies or get a job as rebuilding. And that's fine. But where does Occupy come into that equation is a question that we have.
Good.
So, what we're trying to do is work with different groups about these issues and to get away from 50 hubs having 50 different aims. If Occupy Sandy can come together and work together as a community or several communities, we can be much more effective in the same way that we were effective at the beginning of Occupy Wall Street. So that's what we've been talking about in OccuEvolve. Where are the resistance efforts, and OccuEvolve, as well as the Labor Outreach Group, as well as other groups in Occupy Wall Street, are now working to ask these questions of people in Occupy Sandy. But we've been having issues because it seems like each hub of Occupy Sandy wants to do their own thing. I could be wrong. I'm optimistic about what could happen.